So for the character animation examples, I have some student examples here. A couple of caveats. The biggest one being that every time we get to the end of the semester, things are always different. So these assignments all have slightly different parameters than each other. So some of them they might have had less time than you, and things like that. So there can be differences in that measure, but they are all student made. They are all based on characters that they made for their midterm. It's just that the assignment does tend to vary slightly. But these are good examples of the types of things you can do with character animation. They are wildly different from each other. So you can take a different track with this depending on what your character is, how they're set up. So at the very basic end, but still more complicated than you think, I have a couple of what I would call still cycles. So it's kind of like if you're in a video game and the character is just sitting there, but they're not just sitting there. Or if you have like a cartoon sitcom where the character's gotta sort of stand still, but your character is scared or hyper, right? You're gonna recognize these words, by the way. So just to show them here. So on this one, and it is just a cycle. We've got this cute little scared bunny rabbit, and like, oh, what's he gonna do? He's gonna bounce up and down, his ears move. It is simple, but it's not, because if you look at just how many pieces are moving, this is squashing and stretching. This is wiggling back and forth very fast. Eyes are darting around, getting replaced with closed eyes. The mouth is getting replaced. The whiskers are moving. Right now, it adds up to a lot more than you would think. And we can see that in the timeline. Now, this particular person used, there we go. They used motion tweens for everything. Some of these will use classic tweens for everything. Your mileage may vary. It's up to you what you want to use. But they used motion tweens and replacements for everything. Right, but you can see just how many pieces are moving. Here, we have a combination of shape tweens, classic tweens, and just individual stuff, and you'll see why the individual stuff in a second. So this was like a hyper vegetable, I think. I'm not really sure. But again, moving, squashing, and stretching, replacements for blinking, little bit of sweat animation coming off of here. It's a little bit less going on than the last one, but it's a lot of different types of things, right? So these are both examples of it's a simpler self-contained idea, but it's well executed. So if you're thinking of doing something like this, you are going to have to, as these two people did, really go in and nail down timing, right? You need to spend time on, all right, so if it's squashing and stretching, um, what does that look like? How does it squash and stretch in time? And then you try to do tweening on the feet before you realize that it's actually better off doing not tweening because you need it to be stuttering. That's what the stutter step is for. Next up we have one, I believe. Yep, so all classic tweens. And that's a repeat. So this is a repeat of this. Lots of copying and pasting frames. You'll see why in a moment. Sorry, it freezes every time I stop it. So we have a cat with a walk cycle. And I'm going to show you a couple of the different things that he did to make this work. For one thing, you see the tail just kind of twitching back and forth. Everyone's always thinking it has to have this very like loopy, smooth look to it, but in reality, we don't need that. The simple feet are just swinging back and forth. A lot of this is the eyes darting around. I think it was a scared gray cat. But one of the key things he did was nest the walking animation inside a movie clip. So with the advent of parenting, which none of these people had access to, BT dubs, you don't necessarily need to use nesting as much. But if we look out here, this is just like the witch. The cat is just sliding across, and then it stops, and then it slides across again. I don't even know if he put a tween. No, he didn't put an ease on this. But inside the cat movie clip is most of the animation. We'll get into the head in a second. Actually, there we go. Oh, I accidentally put a keyframe in there. That's no good. We don't want to be adding stuff to the animation. There we go. So the walk cycle is A, B, A, B, A, and it was copy, paste, copy, paste. So once he figured out you start here, you swing here, copy everything back to there. And then copy this set of keyframes here. And then copy, there's a lot of copy and paste is what I'm saying. And even, I think even the body is moving. Yeah, the body's moving up and down a little bit. The tail is kind of on its own thing. It's cycling back and forth between different tails. And the head is doing its own thing. But because all of this is inside a container that he then slides out here, that was one less thing to worry about. Swing the legs back and forth, move the body up and down, dart the head around, but he didn't have to worry about moving across the screen, because what if he decided the cat was going to move faster? How do you change all of this, right? No. You just put the animation on the outside. There is also, I believe, nested animation inside the head. This is where he did the eyes. So the eyes can go boop, 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 and dart around. Again, if you parent the eyes to the head, you maybe don't have to worry about that as much. But parenting wouldn't solve the problem of the locomotion because the body is moving up and down. And if you parent the legs and the head to the body, then every time you move the body up and down, they follow. But in this case, we don't want it to follow. All right, another example of locomotion, the bunny has returned. We're gonna make this bigger so you all can actually see it. This is the other way you can do locomotion. You cheat it and the character doesn't move at all, and you scroll a background past them, which is totally okay. Now the character loops perfectly, the background doesn't. That's all right. We haven't learned how to do backgrounds. I won't mark it against you or anything. But what's happening with the character is, again, it's on a cycle. And in fact, the background goes by longer than the character. The character loops a bunch of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So technically, the loop is this section right here with this what looks like a gap here, and then this is section 2, and then this is section 3, and then this is 4, 5. Yeah, so there's 6 of them. So again, copying and pasting frames, which by the way is not Control-C, Control-V. It's right-click, copy, right-click, paste. And you can do that for a whole chunk of frame. I can take all of this, except for the background. And assuming I have the correct set of frames, because this is not my project, I can say copy frames. And then I can go over here, drag select the same number of layers, right-click, paste frames. And I missed the eyes, but I was going to miss something. Oh, because they're all the way up here. Gotcha. But that's how it worked, right? It was, they don't do the thing 6 times. You do it once, you get it right, like really, really right. And then you go from there. So you can see just how many pieces he had to move. There you go. To get all that to work. Again, feet jumping, ears flopping, hands flopping, this moving up and down, everything has to go. Now you all have parenting at your disposal, so a lot of these would be redundant. All these things that don't have tweens on them would probably just have to follow the body. So the parenting makes the work a little bit easier for you. Let's see. Now this is using an animation style that tools we definitely don't need anymore. But oh, hello. I still thought it was pretty cute. And they use the drop shadow to kind of separate the pieces out and separate the body, pieces out from the background. Again, just a little dog, just a little begging. There should be movement in the face, but at least the body is, doing an appropriate amount of stuff. So here's 2 more completely different ways you can do this. And I'm doing this to give you options. You do not need to do all of these types of things. You need to pick one route. and do that. And if you are having questions about if it's going to work, email me. Please email me as soon as you have the idea and be like, is this going to happen? Is this going to like fit the assignment? I could say yes or no. But better hear yes, you better hear no early than later. So this next one you're about to see is actually more about lots of different shots. So I'm still not entirely sure how he has this file set up. There's this piece here. There we go. All right, here it is. So the way he treated this is that he has different, he has these like different symbols. And each of them, some of them are just pieces, but then these ones right here, yelling, talking, whatever this is, there's different animation in them. And then he has crazy wild stuff, and he makes it look like it's a bunch of different shots. So it's like an edited together video. So you can see that it's not one continuous thing like all the others. It's a collection of short little like things of, I think it's meant to be a mascot, but like screaming loudly like that, flying wildly out of control. Little bit of replacement, lots of movement, lots of individual pieces moving, like the wings moving or the beak moving, but this is actually a relatively simple puppet. This is just the one wing. It's like one big piece. And the work was put in to have the different shot content. This is one shot. This is another shot. There's another one. And here's the being crazy. Right, there's your flying around. And so he's got a combination of stuff. He has, we've got motion tweens here. We've got individual frames. I don't think he has any. Let's find out. Yeah, no classic tweens. It was all just motion tweens and then individual frames, which is fine. You can do this however you want. You can see this person loved their classic tweens. Actually, that same person used motion tweens over here. So it just depends on what you want to do. But this one in particular, it was all about the individual shot choices, right? So each new keyframe brings a new framing, like a new composition to this. And then this last one slightly goes against what I said about not having like a longer movie, but when you see it, you'll know why I'm including it. So if you are going for something with comedic timing, something where you want to have a bit of a gag, and your character's not moving around a lot, you can get away with something a little bit longer, right? So now there is some motion in here. We've got the hair here, and the bandana moving around. It's mostly in the arm and the sword. The ears flicker, by the way, when the sword lands. And then you've got that slow, that very slow eye, flicker, and then. Now, I want to be clear that to accomplish this takes a lot of finesse. This is funny because the timing is really good. There's a pause before the eyes slide, and then the eyes slide very slowly, and this is like really nice. It's good and it's there, but it's not like distracting. And so the whole thing ends up being more than 10 seconds, which is, I think, longer than any of the others, and it's not repetitive at all. Now, again, this person did not have any parenting joint change, so it had to all be this interior stuff. Like this, replacement hands. See, it's always a little bit more complicated than you think. The hand has to be replaced. They spun it around manually because spinning things in here kind of stinks. And then use probably different replacement arms depending on, that's the other spin. What was going on here? I believe this is where, yeah, they have it in here animating all away. So it's all in one movie clip, which is sometimes what you have to do in order to separate things from each other. And most of the animation is, I believe, interior to the various movie clips. Part of it is just that that's how this person worked. but a lot of it had to do with there's no parenting available. All right. So if you really feel like your comedic chops are up to it and you want to spend your time really finessing the timing on something and you've got a great gag you want to go for, then you can maybe go for it. Um, if not, consider a little bit of simple locomotion or, a nice little still, like a nice little cycle of the character kind of being themselves for all of a second and a half. Um, Everything has its trade-offs. There's fewer pieces moving in here, but it's a lot of timing. It's a lot of time. It's like 10 seconds to fill properly without dead time, as opposed to this being only a second and a half, but every little piece is moving. Feet, arms, nose, mouth, ears, the whole 9 yards is moving, and it's moving very well. So you can go either of these tracks, whatever you're more comfortable with. There's always going to be some work that has to be done, and there's always going to have to be rework that has to be done, where you have to kind of go, like, do something, set it up, re-go over it, finesse it, things like that.